in terms of musicality, one learns how to listen to the song and actually serve the song and the artist instead of, oh, this is what I practiced last week, so I want to. I need to express that, and that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When sometimes you hear these musicians like, oh my God, look at this guy, he's on tour with so and so and so and so, and he's not even so amazing. It's like, well, it's not about that.
It's not about technical ability.
That's the thing. It's about like understanding, like, because you're both an amazing session player, that I call all the times, but sometimes you call me as a session player and you're the musical director.
Right.
So maybe that a lot of people don't understand how you have to have the two brains. Like, it's what do you need from me, or now this is what I need from you.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I realized playing sessions. It's and we both now, I've been very fortunate to work with some amazing producers and engineers, and whenever I get a call from, say, Umberto Gatica, I know that he can call whoever he wants to call.
Right.
And part of me goes like, man, he'd call me again. Oh man, what am I gonna sound good? Am I gonna suck?
Right.
And at the same time, when I'm like, wow, okay, well, if he called me, it's because I have something to offer that he wants for that specific song.
So in that regard, what's your, because I want to know your take on that. Like when Umberto, somebody that we work with, for example, Umberto Gatica calls you for a session, what do you think he values the most when you show up? What's more valuable for him?
Well, I've heard him say it, and it's, some people might take it as I took it as a compliment. He says, well, I don't want that perfect LA stuff.
Right.
I want something more raw. And I'm like, okay, sure.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
You want a different, you don't want I like to think you want more of a heart thing than a technical perfect performance.
Right.
More of a vibe thing.
More of a vibe, yeah. And as far as like what's your experience, this is like obviously as a session guy, as a session guy, what's more valuable for you? What do you think, like, with people that want to know what are the best tools that you can have? Is it sight reading? Is it having the best sound? Is it being fast? Is it what's
there's a huge myth about that, because we all think that these guys in LA, the guys that we idolized, they all walk in and they just, like, the first take is like the most perfect thing ever. And it's not. It's not. They take time to
get it right.
To get it right. Obviously, they're incredible technically. They can execute everything amazingly.
Right.
But they're not afraid to ask. I remember doing a session with Robin Ford. I was playing rhythm guitar, and Robin Ford was a guest artist playing the solo.
Okay.
And we're sound checking, and we're running through the song, and he all of a sudden he starts, so what scale should I use on this chord right here, to the composer?
Right.
And I'm like, did I hear that right?
Right.
And then the composer's like, well, yeah, on this one you use the super locrian, and this one, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute, man, I don't speak Greek.
Right.
And I was floored. I was like, wow.
Right.
This is a guy who, when I was right before I saw that catalog, he was on the cover of Guitar Player magazine. I had that.
Right.
With a little, vinyl thing that was a page of the magazine, and you ripped it apart. It was a vinyl. And I'm doing a session with him, and he's asking, what scale should I use? Because he didn't know. And he was not ashamed of asking that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it came time to do the solo. He nailed it.
Right.
First take that we're recording, he nailed it.
Right.
But it was that, it just shattered that perception that you don't, I don't know, and I don't ask because I don't want to be embarrassed. No, you need to ask everything that you can in order to do your job the best that you can.
Yeah, and as quick as you can.
Because otherwise, how are you supposed to know what, say you're the producer and I come and I play, so what do you want? Because the more I know about what you want, the better I can get to that place.
Right.
But sometimes in sessions, the producer doesn't know what they want.
Right.
So your job in a session like this is to your most valuable asset in a session like that is to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Is to give him is try to figure out what he wants.
What? Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what does he want? Okay, and then, I did a session for Roberto the other day, and it's like, yeah, we want some sort of a bossa nova thing, but I heard the song and it was not a bossa,
Mm-hmm.
but they wanted the Brazilian vibe, so I started playing something else, and he immediately was like,
That's it.
"That's
Right.
great, let's do that."
Right.
That was my job.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah, it is different because you work with somebody like Umberto is somebody that's I think he's an amazing producer and he really has a great sense of creativity of what works and what doesn't work. But for example, he's not somebody that reads music.
Right.
So, which is a lot of people again is like maybe somebody that you have to learn how to work with. That's different from working with a film composer.
Yeah.
That's like going to tell you exactly what it is, but it's
And
a
even
different.
then, I did a session the other day with a guy called Marcelo Zavros, he's a Brazilian composer. And again, he always records the number one guy, which is George Deering, who is an amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
He can read anything
Mm-hmm.
because he was a piano player.
Right.
I remember doing a session with him a long time ago, and I was playing second guitar, and he just walked in and just
Right.
read it. Like it was like, man, how did you do this? Well, man, I used to read Debussy.
Right.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't compete with him.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
There's no competition. He's been doing that for 40 years. 40 years at that level.
Right. Right.
So I have to find what it is that I can bring that will make people call me.
Right.
And sometimes it's not about your musical ability. Sometimes it's the hang.
Right.
Sometimes it's the energy you bring to the session, whether you're positive or whether you're always like,
Right.
with the long face. And
Absolutely.
it's like, oh yeah, and I don't want to be here.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying that I'm not. Sometimes I am guilty of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes I'm able to perceive that and bring myself out of it. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm
Right.
here. I'm here for that person. It's
Right.
whatever my issue is.
Mm-hmm.
It has to
stay.
It has to stay out because right now I'm serving this person.
Right.
I remember a session that really changed my perception of that. I remember being in this very small studio in the valley, and it was not where I prefer to be at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the music perhaps was not the music that I wanted to be recording at the time, and I remember just being like super negative.
Right.
And until I had the realization, like, wait a minute, I don't know what this person's done or how hard she has worked
To be here.
to make this,
Right.
to pay me to come record for her.
Right.
So who am I to just walk in and say that her stuff is worthless?
Right.
I'm nobody.
Yeah.
I'm nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here to serve her.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's so small. It's like, okay, well, and then after that point, I decided to like, well, if it's something that I don't agree with or I don't relate to, or before I say yes, I have to see what's
Right.
in it.
Right.
What am I going to get from it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sometimes is it worth it doing it just for the paycheck? Obviously, I don't have a family. I don't have a
Right.
kid. I don't have a house to pay. It makes it different.
Right.
If you have a kid, then perhaps you will take gigs that before you had a kid you won't
Yeah.
take.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. But everybody has a different
Yeah, of
journey,
course.
and everybody has different financial responsibilities, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. But I think it's about. I think in that regard, it's about being. If you are there, you have to be there,
have to
and
be
you have to be present, and you have to be your best.
Yep.
Your best self. Otherwise, don't be.
Yep.
I agree, and I think it's all about consistency as well. Like you have to every time they call you, you have to. It's not because sometimes like some section players I've seen that they're amazing, and then you call them again, and it's like, what is this the same guy or and then so. I think it's like McDonald's. I don't go to McDonald's, but every time you go, you know exactly what you're getting. Or you go to Starbucks, it tastes exactly the same way all the time.
Right.
And I think that's a value that, at least coming from Spain, we don't have so clear. That
Right.
a lot of the success comes from consistency because,
Well, yeah.
And
I think that's a level of professionalism that that will separate you from, or the boys from the men, and because
Yeah.
exactly that. if I'm a producer and I've found this out, it's all about the casting.
Right.
It's all about the casting. It's
Right.
not because he's better. So, John is better than Grecco, than who's better than
Right.
Steve. It's not about who's better. It's about who's better for the song.
For the song, and for that group of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the dynamic, the energy dynamic between the group of people.
Yeah.
It's about, is he the right, we go back, does he have the right accent for the song? It's not a matter of, oh, but he can play over changes like nobody else. Yeah, great, but the song has only 4 chords.
Right. Right.
And I want like a steady 8-note pulse.
Right. Right.
And you can play giant steps in all 12 keys, but if you can't play a 8-note groove
Right.
for the song that I'm producing, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, giant steps is amazing, and if you know how to play it in 12 keys, amazing.
Yeah, but that's not what you're doing at that time.
Right,
So, yeah.
but then it's the responsibility of the producer to make the right casting call.
Right. Correct.
Who am I gonna cast for this thing?
Correct.
And I think this is something that I've observed in Brazil. I don't know how it is in Spain, but people tend to take it a lot more personally. Maybe
Uh-huh.
here too. Maybe here too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, why didn't he call me?
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
I
It's,
think you need to leave your ego at the door, because it doesn't mean that he doesn't like you. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It doesn't mean that you're not friends. It just means that for that specific song, he wanted that
sound.
accent,
Yeah. Yeah.
that way of speaking.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's, and it's one of the things that kind of keeps recurring with some of the other guests that we talk. It's a whole ego thing, and I think LA, it really helps you kind of, find your place and and what the value of ego is and what the harm of ego could
Right,
be.
exactly, because it has a value and it can be harmful.
Right, right. I think, ego is necessarily when you walk in, like you said, like if David Foster's gonna call you, you need to have,
Right.
you
need to own it.
self-confidence
Yeah.
to own it, and then, oh, you want me to do this? Here you have it.
Yeah.
But you need to be humble enough, and hopefully everybody around you, which I feel like the city, what's your experience? I think like it's a city that kind of evens out a lot
Yeah,
of.
because there are so many uber talented people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like playing guitar. I can name like 10 guitar players that I think are better than I am.
Right, right.
And so that automatically puts me in a place where, like, well, there's a lot of people who are talented. It's
So
just-
for you, that kind of competition in a city like this, is that a good or a bad thing?
I think it's good. I always come back to this when I talk about this. When I was in school, I remember a teacher of mine called, I'm not going to remember, Howard, and it's not Benson, because Benson is a producer.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps it is. He used to teach the big band.
Okay.
So he was a great reader.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave a workshop or a seminar or some sort of lecture, and he was quoting another friend of his, who I don't remember who it was, but the quote stayed with me. And this friend of his used to say, "I believe in abundance. There's work for everybody."
Right, right.
And there is.
Mm-hmm.
There is work for everybody.
Yeah.
You just have
Yeah.
to find what it is that you do, and obviously there are a series of unspoken rules
Mm-hmm.